super long session, but certainly it will be a very useful session just for everyone to get a very clear understanding on exactly what Fuelin is and then how to use it to make sure that you're getting the most out of the program, and certainly how intelligent it is in ensuring that you're provided with the right food and certainly the right fuel before, during, and after sessions. So, sorry. Is that not working? There. Okay, so we're just going to go through the system, then we'll go through intensity scores, what they are, how to update those in today's plan and training peaks, go through the importance of the duration of the session and the start time and why that is important to put in, and then certainly we'll have some time for Q&A. Okay, so most of you have seen this slide before, but just wanted to touch on it. So effectively, the system, as you know, will sync with Training Peaks, today's plan, and final surge. The most important things for you as well, either for your coach or yourself, to ensure that every day and every session is taken care of, is in terms of the session intensity, the start time, and the duration of that session. That ultimately is then going to lead to number 2, which is you'll be provided with a custom nutrition program from a day-to-day perspective, but also all the fueling requirements for intra-session fueling. I think everyone understands that there is the possibility to track, and certainly what we encourage athletes to do is track in the first part, because, you know, as Bashar said, you become very aware of what you are doing. And I think that's the importance of tracking it at some stage in your nutrition journey. It's not to say that you need to track for the rest of your life, although I do appreciate a lot of endurance athletes, and certainly triathletes and Ironman athletes are fairly type A, love numbers, love statistics, love the detail. So if that is something that you find useful, then certainly do it. I think from a starting point, it's very important to get an understanding of what you are taking into your body. And certainly the thing we would say about tracking is that tracking is only as good as the accuracy at which you apply it. So if you're not being accurate with your tracking, then I would say that it's probably not worth doing. You have to be honest with yourself, honest with what's going in the mouth, in terms of, you know, not skipping treats that you maybe don't think need to be entered, and so on, and being realistic about portion sizes and whatnot. But certainly once you get an idea of what you are eating and then learn to transition into that visualization method, which we talk about, then I think certainly you can go to an eyeballing type method and still manage the program very well based around the traffic light system and understanding, you know, your carbohydrate requirements in particular. As a lot of you have seen, the upgrade in the features with the carbohydrate capacity testing, understanding how much carbs you're taking in, what types of products you're using mixed types of products, so from chews, from liquids to bars to gels, and understanding how they affect you and understanding what you can go through is really important. And then also with the sweat rate testing. And I think it's really lovely. I think we've had, as I said, nearly 270 odd tests in the last 3 weeks, where athletes are really dialing in what they're doing in these bike and the run sessions, and certainly the brick sessions. So that's really exciting to see. And then I think, as all of you know, the big part of Fuelin is these Q&A sessions. So you guys can lean in and learn from us, ask questions, and hopefully we keep you up to date with the most up-to-date science and nutrition science. Okay, so from an intensity score, and we refer to these as Z scores, I think a lot of coaches do. These are really used to set the specific intensity at which to complete a workout. Now, as I think a lot of you will know from a lot of your coaches and whatnot, that the Z score, or the intensity of what the coach puts in, can be determined by a number of ways. And this obviously is something that needs to be flushed out and make sure that what your coach is putting in is relevant to how we look at the Z scores. And so I think heart rate, lactic threshold, percentage of lactic threshold, VO2 max, power, RPE, that is rate of perceived exertion, can all be used by coaches to put in their Z scores. Like Ben, are you doing your own Z scores, or is your coach putting them in?
Yeah, I add my own Z scores.
And are you basing that off? What are you basing that off of? Wattage, or are you basing it off heart rate?
Yeah, just the zones that like the session's focused around. So okay. I generally will base that off power, but if I've got it set right, they correlate power and heart rate the same.
Yeah. And look, what we're seeing is there's some, some coaches are there's very fine delineation between, like, say, Z3, Z4, Z5, and they're very tight percentages. And I think that's great when you're looking at zones in power and what you're trying to achieve from the exercise component. But I think from our perspective, we can make that fairly simple from how we want to think about fueling. So I think when you are putting it into Training Peaks, or you are putting it into today's plan, you want to be looking at those in that title. We need to have at least, at the very least, either a Z2 or a Z3 in that title. Now, when we look at that, the way we look at that to keep it as simple as possible for the athlete is anything that is Z2 or below is going to be considered a lower intensity session and can be fueled with lower carb and potentially higher fat. If we see a Z3 or above, okay, we're thinking it's either at race pace or above race pace, and therefore the consideration for higher carb fueling and certainly low fat fueling. And I'm not saying lower fat fueling, I'm saying low fat or probably no fat fueling in that. Does that make sense to those who are on there today? So I really want this to be very clear. And what you can see in these two images is in the title, you can see very clearly that in the title for Training Peaks, there is a Z3. Now that person's put in a Z3-4. That's perfect. That will still be picked up as going to be requiring, if the duration of the session, and you can see the middle one there, the bike, which is a Z3, Z4, would certainly be fueled with higher carb fueling and give the individual the opportunity to practice higher carb fueling for that. Now with today's plan, again, you can see in all the titles that those sessions are covered. The 35-minute, you can see on the far left under August the 4th, the 35-minute session actually doesn't have a Z score in it. Now, the reason for that, you may consider not putting a Z score in, is because that session is actually very short in duration and wouldn't actually be fueled with any intra-session fueling anyway. So there is that ability for you to think about doing that. Now, what I might do, how do I just gotta, give me 2 seconds. I'll just see if I can share my other screen. You share. God. Jay, can you, how do I actually share my other screen if I want to do that? You share? No. Okay, hold on. Ah, here we go.
You might have to stop sharing and then reshare the screen you want to.
Sorry. Give me 2 seconds, everyone. Okay. Can you see my Training Peaks or not? No?
Yep.
Oh, you can see my Training Peaks?
Yeah, it's quite small though. Maybe.
Is it? Okay, hold on.
You can zoom in on the grid.
Hold on. There. Is that better? Can you see that now?
It's still really small.
Oh, really? It's very odd. Okay. What I'll do is I'm just going to quickly demonstrate. So this is in Training Peaks. So you would just go into the session. You'd click into the session. And then up here, so what you can do, you can see that it says Zone 2 here. So what you can actually do is just in the title, that's where you just need to put it. click and save. Now there's the drop down menu as well. In terms of time of day, the default is actually set at before 7 o'clock. So if you're doing all morning sessions, you don't actually need to worry about the time of day. But if you obviously have bricks or you have multiple sessions within the day, then certainly you want to consider using the time of day drop down feature in order to make sure that the time of the session is there. The duration is going to be related to that. So this is a 4-hour 25 run bike ride. If it was a brick, you would then need to make sure that the run off the bike would be scheduled at roughly 12:30 or 12:25. Okay, because that's really important, that the gap between the run off the bike and the bike is not more than, say, I think it's 15 minutes. Because if the gap between the run off the bike and the bike is more than 15 minutes, we will actually allow you to have a proper meal or at least a snack in that time, because we assume you're actually stopping and not going to be doing it straight off the bike. So the timing of those brick sessions is really important for you to consider. And then you just need to save and close. So you can go through the entire week, make sure that the sessions are there. You can see this is Z3, that's been done. It was done at 10:21, so that's all post, okay? So if you look at these sessions here, this session here will be done in the morning because he hasn't entered the time. It's got Z2 in there, so we know that that's perfect. Then what we're going to do, okay, and then what we'll do is just show you how it works in today's plan. Can everyone see my today's plan?
Not yet. Yeah,
Can you
now we see
that
it.
now. Okay. And again, apologies if it's a little bit small. So if we come through to here to Friday, what you actually have to do, rather than clicking on there, click on this little edit button, edit the activity. And what that will bring up is the session. In the session name here, you can see I've already entered Z2, and here the time of day, and you just need to update that. So you can just type in, you know, as I've done here, 6 o'clock in the morning when I'm doing the session, and there's a Z2. Check all that, everything's good. I don't need to worry about updating the duration because that's been put in there by the coach, and then we go. And you can just see, I would just go through the rest of the week, making sure that every session has a Z score in the title, and depending if it is a run off the bike or a multiple sessions, that you want to make sure that those timings. So again, if I click into this, you can go this way, or if I want to click into this session, so it's a transition off the bike, you can see the other bike was done at 6 o'clock in the morning and it was a 3-hour ride. So this one is then set at 9 o'clock in the morning, and it's also a Z1 session. And so it just works effectively like that. Very simple. Should take you about 3 to 5 minutes to go through your entire week and just make sure that every session has a Z score in the title and that the start of that session is actually completed correctly. Does anyone have any questions about that? All good? Okay.
Yeah, I do want to note, you could also do it within the app as well, the Training Peaks app, as well as the Today's Plan app. You need to make the updates, and then Scott, do you want to talk about if changes happen during the week, how athletes let us know?
Yeah, and just on that point, I think, honestly, I think the easiest way to view it and to do it as quickly as possible is via a web view within Training Peaks or Today's Plan. I think you will find it a lot quicker and easier to do. But if you are stuck and need to do it on the app, then certainly do it that way. In terms of doing a rerun, if things change and you need to change a session because you know, something happens, things do change, all you need to do is go back in, update the session with the start of the time of the session, and if the Z score changes, and then just go into the bottom right hand corner of the athlete section in your app and request a rerun, and that will be run straight away. And you won't have a delay on that anymore. We've taken away any delays. So you should be able to request that rerun, and your plan should be updated fairly instantaneously for you, because we appreciate that sometimes things do go wrong and you just want to be able to update it as quickly as possible. The reason we want to get the start time right is because this is going to impact fuel recommendations. And this sort of runs off the back of the Z scores as well. The way in which the system works, in terms of the way into which the planning is, that if that session is of significant duration, i.e. a bike is over 80 minutes for a Z3 session, or over 90 minutes for a Z2 session, then you will be given in-session fueling. Now, depending on how long that session is, that's going to impact what you're given for pre-session fueling as well. So certainly if you're over sort of 3 hours as a session, you're most likely going to be given a green meal to consume before that. And that's really important to understand, that at that point in time, you have an opportunity, therefore, to practice. If it is a green, and if it says snack, don't think that that's not going to be like a main meal. It's just the way in which we've segmented the wording, or the types of meals. That a snack is obviously first thing in the morning. If it is a green, you're still consuming somewhere between 100 and 120 grams of carbs. And so whilst you may see the word snack, certainly consider that snack to be your first main meal of the day. And if it is green, certainly you're using, as I said, 100 to 120 grams of carbs in that. And that's an opportunity potentially to practice your race day breakfast, or what you would eat on a race day prior to starting. As you can see here as well, the post-session fueling is going to be impacted by the duration and the intensity of the session, and then also any follow-up sessions that are going to be placed in that same day. If you've got a short period of rest and then another session coming up, which is of high intensity, that meal in between, or that snack in between, is most likely going to be probably a yellow meal, because in order just to allow you to recover from the session before, but then also get you ready and primed for the next meal. Now, those are general rules in terms of how the colors are dictated to. Obviously, what your primary goal is, i.e. are you trying to lose weight, or are you in a period of performance, is certainly going to dictate how those meals are distributed across the day and the week. Because if we're trying to put you in a caloric deficit, we may be bumping down those meals as well on each day. And that's important. Sometimes you'll think, God, I would have thought I would have got a green meal there, and you're given a yellow meal. The reason might be is because your total calories throughout the week needed to be bumped down in order to keep you in a caloric deficit if your goal is to lose weight. So that's something that you can certainly ask us about if you've got some questions about why a certain meal is the color it is. We can certainly tell you that at that point in time. As I said, the duration is important. It will certainly impact the pre-session, the intra-session fueling, and the post-session fueling. And as I said, the duration and the Z score is going to be the most important factors when looking at what you're consuming in session. Does anyone have any questions about that at this point in time? So the other thing I just want to actually also just touch on is can everyone see my screen? Can you see my screen at the moment?
Yep.
Okay.
I can see it. So
in terms of adding an event, where are we here? Down the bottom. So if I want to add in an event in here, this is really important for when you've got races, okay? So in Training Peaks, in today's plan, where is it, Jay?
Multi-sport.
Is it multi-sport? Yeah, so multi-sport. So if this is your, let's say it was Ironman Lake Placid, You certainly want to enter it as a race, solo. You want to enter in the full duration of what that's going to take. So if that was going to be, you know, let's say 5.5 hours, the duration, and then what are we, miles? That's in kilometers. Let's say whatever it is, 150 kilometers, because we're in today's plan. Then you want to add that in. So what that will come in as is, we will know, where did I enter that then? Where did that come in? Here. So it's up here. So we will know that that is an Ironman, and that's the duration and that's the distance that comes in, and that will be picked up very quickly. So what we're seeing in this, and also what we're also seeing in today in Training Peaks, so if we come to here, can you see my screen now in Training Peaks?
Yes.
Okay, so then if you are racing, you want to add an event. Now, again, that event might be, if you want to put, you know, sorry, the other one should have been 70.3 as well, not an Ironman. 5.5 hours would be impressive. 70.3, let's say Santa Cruz, if that's what you're doing. You want to go to add goals, and this is really important. So again, this is where you would be putting in how long it's going to take you, the distance, 70.3. You know, are you trying to set a PR? Yep. And do you want to, you know, finish the event's not so important, but that's certainly what we need to see in the event. We need to understand how long it's going to take you and what the distance is, so that we can factor, and then what type of race it is. So it's a triathlon. Okay. And then we would be saving that there. And you can see here, okay, that event has been added. The details are in it. When we click on it, it's got 5.5 hours, it's 70.3, and the person wants to set a PR. Now, the reason we need the duration and also the distance is because that's going to influence total training hours that you're doing for that week and how that's compared to the previous week, but also used for the next week's nutrition as well. Because there is a lot of that in the background that we're using, a lot of that data, just to ensure that like training volume isn't getting either, you know, crazy out of control or crazy under in terms of what you're being prescribed, to then manage the total calories accordingly. I'm just going to delete this because Philip probably won't want that in his calendar. Okay. So that's the importance of sort of adding an event properly. Okay. Any questions about that?
Just one other note on events is all you need is the event in there. So you don't have to add any other additional entries. I know some athletes may, in addition to that, add like a separate bike, run, swim session. That's not needed. All you need is that single event with the duration and the distance, and then we'll key off of that.
Yeah, it's a very good point. Actually, we often say that each leg will be broken down. They'll be entering in the swim, the bike, and the run. You don't need to do that, as Jay said, because that will tend to just add extra hours into what we're seeing, and then it gets very confusing. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is actually go through what the plan actually would look like in your phone, and how, if you want to try and line up all your meals for the week, how that system can work, and how we're seeing some athletes using the app to actually plan out their week and sort of plan out exactly sort of the macronutrient breakdown that they want. So this is just a couple of screenshots from the app. So as you can see on the far left, you can have that condensed view. Does everyone know how to bring on that condensed view? So in the bottom left-hand corner, just above the word coach, you can see that, and I'll do a live demonstration on this as well. You can see that sort of 2 arrows going up and down. So in your day view, you can compress it so that you just have a sort of nice overview of, okay, that's my day. It's yellow snack. I've got like a bike ride where I'm not going to be consuming anything. Oh, I've got to run off the bike, but I am going green, so I'm going to be fueling that. I've got a green breakfast, hydrate, yellow lunch, hydrate. I've got a snack in the afternoon, which is red. You know, that's probably going to be one of the red shakes. And then I've got dinner. It's a really nice way of viewing the entire day. And it would be really good to get some feedback on this view. I actually think this should be the default view for everyone, and then you sort of can go into it. But that's my take on it. I'd love for athletes to sort of say, yeah, that is a really nice view, or actually, no, I prefer the detailed view. So certainly open to consideration for that. Then what we've done is I've then opened up the day view, and I've added in all the meals that I was proposing to eat on that day, and then show you how sort of ticking them off and tracking it. And as you can see at the top, my daily macros were set at 190, 95, 330 in terms of protein, fat, and carbohydrates. What I then did was, by ticking off these meals, you can see what I logged. So it wasn't perfect, but it was damn near clear to going perfect by consuming just the meals within the app. And then in the far right hand side, it shows me roughly what was remaining. And yes, I went over as an estimate 6 calories, under by 6 calories. So what I'm going to do now, hopefully this will work. I'm just going to demonstrate my phone. Where is it? Here it is. Okay. Can everyone see my phone?
Yes.
How am I feeling? I'm feeling pretty good. I had excellent recovery. I'm sore as hell because I did a big leg session, and I'm not hungry and I'm not sick. Okay, so if we go down, I'm going to go to next week's view. So what I've done here is this. So in the bottom left-hand corner, that's where I'm hitting that close and expand. Okay. So I can see this is what's happening next week. So what I've done is actually gone in. So I'm just going to delete. I'm going to delete all these meals from here, just so you can see. And so what I'm going to demonstrate is effectively what we're seeing a lot of athletes doing in terms of pre-planning their weeks. So we go into here and I would say, okay, so I need a yellow snack. What's my go-to yellow snack? It's probably this. I usually have some toast with some almond butter jelly. Okay. If I click on the arrow associated with that, you can see instantly it's deleted some macronutrients. I then have the run. I'm going to do the run and then breakfast. What's my go-to breakfast after this? I'm going to have, usually again, what I go for. What was I eating that day? I think I was having overnight oats. That's usually my go-to. Okay. So again, if I then click in the right-hand corner, it's deducting from there. Lunch, what am I going for? So I was going for, I think I was having the Mediterranean skewers. Now I have those. And I'm also going to, I'm going to leave that for the time being. So there, snack was the Perform shake. I click in that, I deduct that. And then dinner was the reward dinner. And I think what I chose to have was the scallops with the fish medley. And then I click that off. Now, what I can see at the moment is that even though I've had all my meals, like what I've allocated there, I'm still a little bit low on protein and fat. So what I'm going to do is with the lamb skewers, with the fish, I'm just going to add something to that. So I'm going to add some white fish. I'm going to have a little bit more protein. And I'm going to say, I don't need the full, 200 grams of fish, but certainly I'm going to add 100 grams of that. And that brings me up to there. And then with the lamb, what can I have to try and get that up. I'm going to click on that. Now, could I have a double serve of that? Probably. Will I just have, I'm just going to have some extra steak with it, and I'm going to have that. And that brings me up fairly close to where I want to be. Okay. So I can see that I've still got, so I've got 56 grams of carbs remaining, and I've got 18 grams of fat. Now with that, again, what I might do, because I can do this, because I've still got that remaining, I'm going to add in some sweet potato, some loaded potato. And there you go. So I went a little bit over my protein, a little bit over my fat, and I'm a little bit short on my carbs. Total calories is pretty good. I'm pretty comfortable with that. I know that I've got very, very close to having my day's meals correct. And so then what you can do is go through the entire week and lay out what you plan on having in advance, and then not really have to worry about sort of, oh, what am I going to eat on that day? And this is certainly something that we're seeing a lot of athletes do. And it would be really interesting to know if anyone on this call has done that, or, and just get feedback about how you find that sort of system working. Has anyone actually done that on this one? Were you aware you could do that? No. Okay. So, I mean, what's your thoughts on that? Like, Trish, what's your thoughts on doing something like that? Would you actually go through and work out what you're going to eat?
Probably not, because I have to deal with my husband and my very picky daughter. So them's the facts. And, you know, he's pretty, I usually just add what I need to, like I ate beets tonight with our dinner. Nobody else in my house is eating those dirt balls. That's what they call them. They taste like dirt. I'm like, they're from the farmer's market. They're killer. So for me, to get my extra carbs, I eat beets. We all had cauliflower. We all had pork tenderloin. My husband and I had a salad, and I'm full, and I'm pretty sure, you know, and I just weigh out, you know, to try and get to 40 grams of protein, which is a lot, but I'm a big girl, so I eat it.
No, it's great. It's great. I mean, look, I think, you know, I think everyone, what we see, and this is the whole point of this system, isn't it? Is try to be flexible and work around what works for the individual. And I think if the way you do it, you know, you understand what you need and you cook extra in order to get the extra carbohydrates, that's great in a family situation. For a single individual, they may find using the system that I sort of just displayed to be useful to sort of plan out the week. Even, Trish, it may be a halfway system where you at least map out what you're going to have, certainly pre-session in the morning, and just identify it so that, you know, you wake up in the morning even, and you don't have to decide like the week in advance. You've just decided, you know what, before every meal, I'm going to have 2 bits of wheat toast with almond butter jelly.
Yeah.
And so you wake up in the morning, you go, oh, what have I meant to have? And it just says to you, eat the toast. Because that's what you've, and then you don't have to decide in the morning.
Figure it out. That would work for me.
Yeah, it could be boiled eggs. It could be anything like that. But, you know, if you've got it there, I think especially early in the morning, you know, that, I think that snack, the breakfast, and potentially lunch, maybe if you plan those out, then it gets to dinner and you go, okay, I'm short on protein, I'm short on carbs. The fat's going to look after itself generally. Okay, I'm going to have some chicken, I'm going to have the veggies or the salad, and I'm going to have a couple of potato, like, you know, a couple of medium-sized white potatoes or sweet potato with that in order to get that extra amount. And then I'm going to close off the day. So it's certainly something to think about, and at least explore. I'd encourage everyone to explore this concept and just, you know, provide feedback on how they find, you know, how they're finding that type of system, and whether it does improve compliance, whether it reduces sort of that decision paralysis of what you're going to eat and so on.
I miss lunch a lot, so that might help me not miss lunch. And then when I miss lunch, sometimes I don't make good choices.
And that's exactly the point here, I think, is once you go a little bit off kilter, like things start to unravel pretty quickly. Like suddenly you're like, oh God, I don't know what I'm going to have. And then you're eating a donut or something like that because you've just got to go and grab it. So
Right.
I think if you've got a framework there, and even if that framework, like if you said, okay, I'm going to eat salmon with a salad for lunch, and then you're out, at least maybe your mindset is like, you know what, I was going to eat fish and salad today instead of getting a burger. Maybe it helps you. Maybe instead you just go towards the slightly healthier version on the menu, and that assists you in that way. So, you know, it's something certainly to think about, and we'd certainly love the feedback on that to see how people find that. And then, so yeah, any questions on that?
Marianne had a question on the check. What do the checks do?
So the checklists, as I thought I showed, if you check off on the actual food image, that will deduct the macronutrients that are associated with that meal from what you're being prescribed. Now, hopefully is that clear? Or was that a live question, or was that a?
Yeah, it was typed in. Marianne, do you want to?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, so if I select the image, then that will count the calories. What if I check breakfast?
So, and we've had this conversation. It's going to lead into something. I mean, if you're not tracking macronutrients, say you're not tracking with the image like meals within, and you're also not tracking with, say, MyFitnessPal, but you're very good at eyeballing and understanding, and you just want to make sure from a tracking perspective, you had breakfast and you had that green breakfast, whatever that green breakfast might be. You know, that might be your overnight oats that, you know, it has at least 100 grams of carbs in it, and it's got, you know, the amount of protein and fat that you require. If from a very basic tracking perspective, if you just want to tick that you had breakfast, lunch, dinner, and a snack, you can just tick those off in that manner.
But that wouldn't count any calorie.
It won't count towards the calories at this point in time. It would just be for you to know that you've had breakfast, you've had lunch, you've had dinner.
Got it. Thanks.
So yeah, effectively at this point in time, you either can use the macros can be deducted by either selecting the meals within the app, like I demonstrated there, or by using MyFitnessPal or Lose It. And that will, if they're synced up, any of the meals that you're logging in MyFitnessPal or Lose It will automatically deduct from the targets that we're giving you as well. Do you currently track? Do you currently track?
Are you asking me?
Yes. Do you currently track?
Yeah, I do MyFitnessPal.
Okay, so it will, you will see that it's deducting whatever you're eating in MyFitnessPal from the targets that you're seeing in the app. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, there is a bit of habit building that I need to do on my side. But yeah, when I add the things on MyFitnessPal, I can see the calories and macronutrients being counted.
Cool, perfect. So that's all syncing up correctly through Apple Health, which is great. Okay.
Well, I would just love to hear from some of the athletes on like how they track. So I know Satish, you typed in the chat, and Arlene as well. Would you just mind sharing? We love to learn as much from you, and I'm sure the other athletes would get a lot from that as well.
Sure. Yeah. Hi, Satish here. Yeah, I do exactly, well, sort of what Scott was showing. For the next day's meal, I don't plan for a whole week in advance, but just each evening or whatever for the next day, I just use plug in what I was going to eat through MyFitnessPal mostly. And that just sort of translates over to the Fuelin, and then I can see how the calories have all added up for the day based on the meals that I've kind of planned out. And I'll put in the meal. If I am doing a meal from Fuelin, then I'll use that Fuelin meal and the shakes and whatever. And then when you check those off, that also subtracts from the calorie totals, and then I can plan out the whole day's meals that way. So I've been doing that since I started with this, and it seems like it's the best way to plan out the day ahead of time.
And Satish, do you mind just your weight loss is pretty exceptional. Like your
I don't know what happened.
Your improvement in body comp. How many you've lost? What, 15 kilos? Is that right?
I don't know if it was 15. It was a 10 kilos at least. Yeah. 20, at least 20 pounds. Yeah.
Which I think is, and actually I only became aware of that well, it was probably a month or so ago, but like, it was really interesting with Satish because he's on the autopilot program and just going about it, but being systematic and tracking what he's doing and using a combination of, as he described, MyFitnessPal, but also using the meals within. And I think it's proof in the pudding that if you are consistent and you do have a system, it certainly can bring about really impressive results without, necessarily that thought of dieting, but just to focus on what you're actually eating. And I think that's a really powerful sort of, headspace to get in, where you actually are just eating, you're understanding more about the fuel that your body's requiring. And, your results speak for themselves. I think also in performance, Satish, like you had a great, what did you come on the weekend? Was it 10th?
10th. Yeah. I got my KQ. So I was pretty happy about that.
Wow. Congrats, Satish. I didn't know.
Yes. I mean, that was it. Was it like, no, not Lake Placid?
Yes, it was Lake Placid. Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. So, really cool. I think what would be really great, and obviously, we want, MyFitnessPal, I get it. It is a bit of a pain in the ass to track there and then for it to come through. I think what would be really cool to see is, more and more people just actually selecting meals within the app and then using those meals to base their daily eating on. And therefore you're not having to necessarily track so hard. You're going about eating, it's the concept of the food and the meals and understanding sort of portion sizes and the components of those meals, and actually using what's in the app to track, as I showed you, by ticking the box off that you've eaten that, and then going about it that way. So you're more focusing on the food as opposed to the calories. And I think that's, again, quite an important sort of mind shift and mindset when you're going about sort of tracking, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, I would love to hear from Arlene.
Yeah, Arlene, do you want to just expand on what you've said?
Yeah, hi. So I had a call with Scott, and we kind of because I was a bit overwhelmed with all the tracking and the meals and everything, and we really simplified stuff. It's been really helpful for me. So we decided I would eat basically one of two breakfasts, which was the overnight oats or a combination of eggs and fish and salad. And it's honestly just been amazing, because now it's if I have a high intensity morning, I'll be I'm having the overnight oats. If I have a lower intensity morning, I just eat the eggs, and I have a bit more time as well in those mornings to prepare, but the oats are ready, whatever. And then also I've just used a few key meals from the app. So there's a couple of things I've done, there's one that has I made a few adjustments because I have sensitivity issues, which I also spoke through with Scott. So I don't put in the garlic or the onions or things like this, but I have an app to kind of let me know what. Anyway, I've chosen a few kind of base meals. So now for lunch all the time, I'll have a salad, and it might have sardines, or it might have chicken, or it might have whatever meat I've prepared. And again, it's just so easy because I cook it on the Sunday, and then I'm okay, this is what I'm putting in. And then if I feel a change, I just put in a different protein. And then there's a bit more flexibility with the evening meal. I can do, again, if it's a higher intensity the next day, or a reward meal or whatever, I can just have rice or pasta, but usually I'll just have sweet potato or potato, a protein, and some veggies. And it's been amazing. I can't, I'm actually injured right now, so I can't really speak on the performance progress, but in terms of how my tummy feels, and also the reduction of stress, it's been so good. And then that makes it easy to track with the app too, because I don't have a lot of stuff going on outside the app. And then when I do, I just add MyFitnessPal when it's not in the app. So yeah, I just feel now I'm just getting so much more out of the app since we made those adjustments. And I've also started some supplements that Scott recommended and stuff. So yeah, like I'm super happy now with, I just want to get back into full training to see if I can maximize the benefits of it properly. But yeah, really good.
That's awesome, Arlene. And thank you. It's great. I mean, I always get, we all do, like Elizabeth, Jonathan, and myself get really chuffed whenever, there's obviously, heaps of success stories. And I think the thing with Arlene, it wasn't complicated. And I think trying to uncomplicate life is probably one of the key things with nutrition. And, certainly we want to reduce that sort of paralysis in making decisions, but in the same breath, still eat a varied diet. So whilst what Arlene is doing with lunch is saying, okay, what's my basic? Okay, I'm going to have a salad and I'm going to change the protein. So you're not eating the same thing every day, but there's certainly a theme to that. And depending if she wants to eat chicken, pork, lamb, small oily fish, whatever it is, if she's varying that on a daily basis, you're still getting the quality nutrition in while simplifying your life. And I think that's, just hearing, and she's very busy. She's got a very high pressure job, high pressure days. And I think any time that we can just simplify that, then it's a big success. So I think that's really great to hear. Les, did you want to say how you do it?
Sure. Yeah. So I enter it into my fitness pal as I go. I don't do a whole lot of pre-planning, partly because of unpredictabilities with work and what have you, and also just to be more compatible with what's going on with my wife and such. And after you've entered a bunch of stuff in my fitness pal, it's pretty easy to just go in and you type in the first few letters and there it is. And I don't find it overly onerous.
No, that's great. And it's so true, isn't it? I mean, we're all creatures of habit, let's be honest. Like, we all tend to eat similar things. And I think it's great that systems like MyFitnessPal recognize repeated meals. I think that's really important. I think the thing I would say, and I'd say to you, Les, to Arlene, to everyone out there, is whilst eating similar foods is really good and it helps with consistency, don't be afraid of exploring, maybe a different root vegetable or maybe a different type of leafy green or a different type of protein within those base sort of meals, because I think it's really important to explore different foods and see how obviously you react to those, but also just different flavor profiles and different cooking methods, because, food should be enjoyed. It shouldn't. Yes, there is sometimes a purpose to why you're eating, and certainly when it comes to racing and dialing it in, you're eating for the purpose of performing at your absolute best. But I think on a day-to-day basis, we're also eating food to just enjoy it and ultimately feel really good about the joy of cooking and the joy of eating food, and knowing that what you're doing is actually ultimately helping you become a healthier human being. So, I don't think that should ever be lost on anyone.
Well, and my wife has certainly noted that I've got more energy and I seem to be happier. So we'll call it a success.
That's a big success, mate. As they say, happy wife, happy life. Eh? So then I think, look, the only other thing I just want to touch on is there is a lot of stuff within the app in terms of that learn section. Certainly watch the videos. I apologize. Most of them are me just blabbing on, but we'll certainly try and update that with far more of Elizabeth. The Q&A sessions, like watch the replays. If you can't watch them live, watch the replays, ask us questions. The private Facebook group, I think everyone's on there now. Like, it's really great to see the interactions and people sharing what they're sort of experiencing. And I think that's really important to do. Certainly, as Arlene touched on, we do the one-on-one consultations. Even if you're in autopilot or co-pilot, don't be afraid of reaching out. And honestly, there's no question that is stupid. Like, pretty much every athlete tends to ask very similar questions, despite them feeling that they shouldn't be asking them. And look, sometimes one-off session like we did with Arlene can be extremely powerful and extremely helpful to you as the athlete. But certainly, engage and ask questions.
Yeah, and I just want to reemphasize that is, if something doesn't make sense about your plan, or you feel like you're either getting too much or not enough, you'll definitely let us know. We definitely are here to listen and help address any questions you have. I know, Noelle, you had a question that you had submitted. Would you like to unmute and ask, or would you want me to just read it?
Sure, I can ask. So basically is along the lines of I'm really busy, and a lot of times my schedule changes. And so I don't want to be running the plan, like, because sometimes it's like, I'd be rerunning my nutrition plan multiple times throughout the week, because just sometimes I just have to like scale back or eliminate a workout or whatever it is. And so I just wanted to know how you guys typically, like, how would I adjust it for myself? Like, if I know I just can't get that bike ride in that morning, and I have to do it at night, or I just have to completely eliminate it, would I just, I guess, yeah, that's what I'm asking, is like, I don't want to have to rerun the plan like 10 times throughout the week when I'm like adjusting my schedule, because sometimes that's just what happens. Yeah, I'm busy. I have 4 kids and I work at the hospital, and it's just sometimes I'm just have to move things around. So yeah, I was just curious about how to adjust my plan that way.
So I think, look, you can rerun the plan. It's not a problem. You can request it. Obviously, if it's last minute and it's just not going to work, then fine. I think the simplest way to think about it is, let's say you've got a high intensity, long duration bike session in the morning. You're given a green snack before it, and you're given, say, a yellow snack, after it. If you're going to do that session later in the day, then certainly just imagine picking up that whole thing and sliding it to the right. Whatever meals were in the evening, bring them to the morning. Think about it that way. Now, if you're not going to do the session at all, I think the easiest way to think about it was, okay, you're not going to eat the pre-session snack. Just eliminate that from it because you're not doing the session. The meal that was given afterwards, I would probably downgrade it by 1 color. So
okay.
if it was yellow, downgrade it to red. If it's green, downgrade it to yellow, along those lines. And you're probably going to do that sequentially throughout the day. That's probably in its simplest way thinking about that, because we will it now. It's not going to be perfect. Appreciate that, because obviously we're factoring in total hours across the day and the week and how that compares to last week and what's also happening tomorrow. I think that's probably the only consideration I would say is, if you have, say you've got, like, say it's Friday, for instance. Fridays usually go wrong for a lot of athletes for whatever reason. Say you've got a swim in the morning, which usually is there, and there's a green dinner. If you don't do that swim session, just
looks like
I think
Scott
I
might be
lost.
having some connection issues. Yeah, so I think what he was going to say is, especially like on Fridays, if you have a really long session on the weekend, oftentimes we'll make that Friday like a carb loading day. So while you may not have a lot of activity on Friday, you still would want to make sure that, especially for sessions, I think it's like 3 hour plus on weekends, that you're continuing to maintain and load your body with higher amounts of carbohydrates.
Right.
Yeah, but definitely don't be shy about rerunning the plan. I think right now we have it set so you can request that every 24 hours. And so if you're needing to switch things around, definitely let us know. But if you're just shifting from morning to evening, that's, as Scott mentioned, it's fairly easy to kind of think through.
And that's kind of what I've been doing. But like for instance, like I had a couple weeks in there where we were like traveling and just couldn't get my workouts in, and I was like, do I just Yeah, but I like what he said, just drop down to the next color. So that makes sense. That makes sense. And I did like how, because I never thought really about pre-planning like in the app. I didn't do that. I was just kind of like recording in my Fitness Pal as I went along. And then I was like, oh, I didn't have enough carbs today. But if I had pre-planned it out, then it would have been already set. So I need to be better about doing that. So it's good.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that everyone has a different method to the madness, and it kind of depends on what works based on your lifestyle. And we were surprised when we first saw it. We saw an athlete who had planned the whole week, and we're like, wow, like we didn't envision our athletes using it that way, but it just gave us an idea to like share that with the rest of the athletes.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. That's super helpful.
Great. Looks like we lost Scott, but are there any other questions or experiences anyone wants to share on how they plan their week, or any challenges anyone's having with kind of the program or the app?
I had a question about, like, on Sunday long rides, I'd like to use that as I just ride in zone 2 because that's just an endurance ride, but I like to use that as an opportunity to practice carbohydrate testing. So I want to eat lots of carbohydrates, but because it's only zone 2, the app tells me to eat low carbohydrate. Should I add that as a zone 3 or 4 just so it'll give me the high carbohydrate?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So just put in zone 3 or 4. And that's something Scott and I have spoken about, of how, I know a lot of training programs are predominantly zone 2. So that's some education we want to roll out to say, if you definitely want to build in those carbohydrate, like gut training sessions, then just, even if it's zone 2, mark it as zone 3. So then you can get enough of those sessions in, let's say before a race. I know we recommend at least like 10 gut training sessions.
Yeah, cool.
Hello, everyone. Sorry, we had a power outage. Sorry.
No problem. Did you hear Ben's question?
No, I didn't. Sorry. And I didn't get to finish with Noel. Hopefully what I was saying made sense.
Yeah, I predicted what you were going to say, and just
about the next day. Yeah.
Yeah, the next day. But Ben's question was, Ben, do you want to ask it again real quick?
Yeah, I was just asking, like, I like to do my sort of carbohydrate testing on my long weekend endurance ride, and because it's just endurance, I've been entering it as zone 2, but that'll give me like low carbohydrate because it's just zone 2. So I was wondering if I need to add that as a zone 3, so it'll tell me to eat more carbohydrate like I want to.
Yeah. So this is what I was saying at the start. Like, I get that every coach and where, your physiological zones are and things like that are like going to be based on different metrics. But from the simplest standpoint, if we see Z2 in the title, we're thinking it's lower intensity. We're thinking higher fat, lower carb fueling. If it's going to be a session where you're like, you know what, I need more carbs at this and I want to practice carbohydrate fueling, put Z3 in the title, Z3 or above. But even the simplest thing is Z2 is going to be higher fat fueling. Z3 is going to be higher carb fueling. That's just how we want everyone to be thinking about it. Cool. Maybe, again, it's always that thing. Maybe we should put a different cue in the title to make it, so it's very clear with athletes, we can recognize what it is. It's something that we talk about a lot, of like, how do we delineate between different coaching methods and, power sort of, or intensity scores for the sessions, and how do we fuel those appropriately. But, as I said, anything Z2 or below, we're thinking it's going to be fairly low intensity and higher fat fueling. Z3 or above, higher carb fueling.
Scott, when you do those rides, because I'm with Purple Patch and they do a lot of zone 2 on the weekend, and I just changed it. I just had a race last week and I changed it, and I actually rode zone zone 3. But now I'm gonna do the prescribed workout, so a zone 2 workout, but I want to continue to work on my carb consumption. Should you adjust your carbs that you're eating later in the day because you're taking in a lot more carbohydrate when you're on the bike? So I think I'll be riding 3 to 4 hours this weekend, and I'm going to try and eat my 90 grams of carbs per hour. But I'm not going to be riding zone 3 though. I'm going to be doing the zone 2. Should I adjust what I'm eating after the session?
But okay, and is that zone 2 that you're riding at race pace? Like, i.e., are you working at above 65% of sort of your max capacity?
Well, I usually ride by power, so I would probably be at 65% of my threshold power.
Yeah, so if it's, I mean, and again, 65% of your threshold power, like, where does that marry up with your heart rate?
Well, I haven't actually done a VO2 test or anything with a mask, so I'm old. I don't know what it is anymore.
even as a crude measurement,
it's going to be
like if you did
about
220 minus your age.
Yeah, it'd probably be probably right around 65%.
So you sort of ride on that threshold, and look, the reality is you might be sometimes better off, doing that with lower carb fueling just to help with shifting, the curve to the right. You certainly want to be using the idea, just eating high amounts of carbs isn't going to make you a better athlete. Let's be honest. Like, but when you're working,
I'm working on
intensity
I'm just more working on the gut part, which I had great success over the weekend, and it was awesome.
For sure.
Very happy about that.
And that, like, it's so pleasing to hear that. But I think what we've got to sort of remember is the intensity. If you're working low intensity and taking on huge amounts of carbohydrates, that's probably not going to be good for you. Okay. Because you're not utilizing those carbohydrates, because your energy, like the way in which your body is utilizing carbs, it's only going to switch into higher amounts of carbohydrates as the intensity increases. So if you're working zone 1, zone 2, your body just doesn't need those high volume of carbohydrates. And so whilst you're taking them in and think you're practicing gut training, there's also that element of you need to be exercising at the appropriate intensity so your body is using those carbohydrates as well. Gotcha. So factor that into there's a lot of nuances about it. So maybe just bump up the intensity a little bit is what I would say. If you practice, if it's a zone 2 session by Purple Patch and they're laying that out, but you want to practice the high carb fueling, certainly change the title, change it to Z3 so we know we're fueling you appropriately. But then you just need to be aware you need to be working at that intensity to, utilize those carbs there. Okay, awesome. Cool. Okay. It was lovely to see everyone. We actually, if I didn't have the power out, I would have actually finished this one on time, because I know I'm terrible at timekeeping. So we'll end the meeting here because I'm sure all of you have got lots to do. But thank you everyone for contributing today. Hopefully it's useful. Sorry about my lack of technical expertise in terms of sharing screens and things. We'll get better at that. But yeah, look, certainly reach out with any questions, feedback, everything like that.
All right. Cool. Great. Thanks, Scott. I know you have another meeting you got to run to.
Yeah.
So I'll stay on if there's any questions about the app, or if you're running into any issues with integrating with MyFitnessPal or anything. So if folks have anything they want to ask about the app, please stay on. See you, Scott.
Bye.